You just pointed.
I was gonna point, but then I thought she was gonna like 3, 2, 1, and I was gonna go, and then she said action. So I guess we've already been rolling. But anyway, hey guys, welcome back to Be Our Friends.
Be Our Friends pod.
That's
another
right.
episode, another day, another good time in sunny California, right?
Yep, nice and sunny.
Right? Okay, anyways. Hey, welcome. How awkward is that? Seriously, welcome back. We got friends here. We have friends. We got Joel.
I'm the friend.
Hey.
Or we're trying to figure out a nickname for Joel. I haven't come up with one yet.
Joel.
Joel.
J-O-L.
What's your last name?
Mott.
Joel Mott.
Mott.
I'm really good. I'm like, JM.
You
Pretty
go,
good,
go
right?
With the
We got
initials.
JM
It's
on
not a
the
bad
pod
move.
with us.
There
And
we
then we
go.
got Lauren. Come on.
It's me.
Lauren, what's your nickname? Tell everybody.
I'm TT.
TT Lala.
TT Lala.
TT with two T's.
There is a story. Do you want to tell a story?
Oh gosh.
It's actually kind of good.
It's really
Short
good.
version about my teeth.
About
Or
your teeth.
Okay.
Yeah. Tell Joel.
So-
Joel's really
Yeah, let's
interested.
hear
I
it.
know he
Okay,
is.
Joel.
It's
All
so
right.
good. There's a grill too, so we could grill something.
Fun fact: I'm a bit adventurous, and I decided
a lot of bit.
Yeah.
it was a great idea. We were playing volleyball, the game where you like
Hit the ball up?
No. But the game we were playing was how
I
many
see, I
hits
see.
could we get on the ball, like without
Oh
it
yeah,
falling.
yeah. I've done that.
I was outside of the pool. Some people were in the pool. I decided how
To
sick
jump.
would it be if I dove in for the ball to save
Mm.
it. So I did, forgetting that I was in the 4-foot range. And so as soon
Oh,
as I went in
no.
the water, my face smacked the bottom of the pool,
You're kidding
and my
me.
2 front teeth were gone.
No way. How old
What
were
did
you?
Raina say? You
How
became.
old was I?
Because was it like
I was-
adult teeth?
Tell him how old you were, Lauren. Tell him how old you
Because
were.
I'm wondering if it's like the nice teeth or the baby teeth.
Oh, no.
You know?
I was,
That's
I was
important.
5 months ago years old.
Oh shoot.
This was recent.
5 months ago.
And she became
Oh,
TT with no
no.
teeth.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I got TT with 2
Oh,
teeth.
that is a crazy story.
And they look
Yeah.
good.
They look
Thanks.
good.
My
Yeah.
dentist,
Those-
my dentist looked at him and she was like, "These look better than they did before you even broke them." I was like, "Wait, pause."
Yeah, I can't
Pause.
tell. There's
Wait a
any-
second.
Yeah.
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 She fixed me up.
Here we go.
Oh man.
Oh,
Well,
pearly
hello.
whites.
That was 2 minutes and 20 seconds of explaining nicknames. Hey, we do want to jump in. We do want to jump into this pod again. It's really conversational, so I hope you're listening to this. I don't know, on a drive or something. But we're gonna dive right into it. Joel,
Yes.
we're gonna really focus these questions on you, but feel free, everyone, to jump in. So I want to really talk about today. We have a lot of young leaders, right? So this podcast is really catered to young leaders. And a lot of the things that I feel like we really maybe struggle with is just overcoming fear or going through fear. And I
Yeah.
really want to know, so you guys started California Be Saved, you and Ross. And what was the process of that? How did you overcome maybe like the nervousness, the scariness, the fears of all of that, and just running for what you felt like this is what God said? Maybe
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that, and then
Yeah.
we'll kind of conversate.
Let's go. Well, it's honor to be on the backyard. What is it?
Be Our
Friends.
Cute name, huh?
And
Be Our Friends,
just
no?
in the backyard here, as you can see, hanging out.
Yeah.
Man, that's a great question. Actually, someone was just asking me that. And really the first place that I start, I think, is with hearing the voice of God.
Hmm.
And because that's really what happened. I don't know if I hadn't heard God's voice, I don't know that I would have had the confidence and the boldness. And in 2020 and 2021, when we were really getting started, like, it was his voice, I think, that really propelled us to go. And I think my journey was so much of, even back in 2017, 2018, feeling like I've received these big promises from the Lord about revival and, an outpouring of His Spirit in our generation and salvation breaking out and, corporate gatherings of worship, these big dreams and these big promises, and then coming through a season of disappointment and really wrestling with the Lord of like what happened to that, in end of 2019, into 2020 with the pandemic and everything, and like, God, what happened to the promises, and then wrestling through that, and then really hearing God's voice again, like, Joel, I am who I say that I am, and I'm every promise is yes and amen, and in just confirming that initial word of like, now is the time for revival. Now is the time for an outpouring of the Holy Spirit. And it was, I don't know, I could go into so much with this, but in short, like, there was a dream that came to me through my friend, And he said, in the dream, we were all gathered together on the beach in California, and we began worshiping. And during the worship, the ground began to shake, and Jesus appeared to us in the dream, brought us to the edge of the water, and he asked, like, do you hear the sound of the water? And he said, the battle in the land of California has already been won. The ground has been prepared, and now is the time for the rains of my Spirit. And that was right before, anything with California will be saved. Before we started anything, and I felt this burning in my heart, like, man, I've got to believe again. Like, I need to sign up, and like I want to put action to what I feel God is speaking right now. But I think just coming back to that same point, like I felt like God was speaking so clearly, and it was like the sound of His voice that really stirred that faith in me. Like, man, I can't be disobedient with this right now. I feel like I don't know what it looks like. We didn't have much figured out at all in the beginning. We still don't. But there was that fire of like, man, I know God's speaking, and I need to lean into this thing with all that I am. So that's the first thing.
But isn't that the fun part where you like don't know what to like? It feels like you don't know.
Yeah.
And all you have is just this like word from God.
Yeah.
I feel like for us, that's really been like a fun journey for us to so many of the steps we take or the things we do is kind of just like, well, this is what God said, and it feels like it feels scary in certain moments, right? Where it's like, you're telling us to do what? But yet we do it. And every time we take that step, we see the faithfulness of God right there.
Yeah.
And so we've never failed by just trusting God.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something, you had to overcome disappointment.
Yeah.
What was that journey like for you? Because I think sometimes as young people, and y'all, again, feel free to step into this.
Oh, yeah.
But I think as young people, once disappointment hits, we give up, right? I feel like someone said this, that I think it was Christine Kane. She said, I'm 55 years old, and the reason why I'm still here is because I'm not better than anybody else. I just didn't quit. And I think disappointment is like a key thing for so many young people, just to be like, well, it didn't go as planned, or it didn't happen the way I thought, so therefore I'm going to not do it. How did you overcome seasons of disappointment and just to keep pushing through?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what happened for me, like that, like I said, in 2018, just fired up, like God had just encountered me, and I was just burning. I had just moved to Pasadena and joined myself to a group of young, crazy, praying and fasting young people, and discipleship school there, and incredible year, right? I'm growing in community and character development and learning how to pray, learning how to worship, and it's an incredible year. But then we get kicked out of our building, the campus there, historic place. Ralph Winter founded it in the 1950s to be, he called it the U.S. Center for World Mission, so a lot of different ministries there. And we're in this historic place called Mott Auditorium, which is, I felt so connected to that. That's the prophetic storyline over this auditorium. It's that Mott is my name, and guys like Lou Engle and the Call were based in this place for a number of years, and this is where our school is meeting. So we get kicked out of Mott. The campus goes on for sale. A secular organization buys the campus, right? They start doing construction, and I live right there next to the campus, and they put this ugly pink fence up around like the ugliest pink you can imagine, and like a hot pink, And so every morning I wake up and I'm just like,
dang.
I'm just reminded of like the disappointment and the discouragement, and you guys, like, I think, I always say this, like, I'm a genuinely pretty joyful guy. Like I have hope for the future. I've got joy in my heart, and I'm like a Enneagram 7. If you guys know anything about the Enneagram, like,
there we go.
Like,
aren't you a 7?
I think so.
Yeah, you're a 7.
Let's go, Team 7.
Hey, come on.
Like I don't advise being, because I came to this season of really just wrestling with the Lord, like a period of a few months here, like, God, what in the world happened? And then right in that same time, the pandemic rolls around, right? And we're supposed to be isolated and all this, and our governor's saying crazy things, and it was really like the exclamation mark on that whole season for me, like, man, what happened? Like, this is so contrary to what I had in mind, right? Of like the corporate gathering, like the corporate expression of worship, revival breaking out on the beaches, and this is early on in 2020, and it was really a difficult season, and I remember just complaining a lot. And this is what I've been saying, like, I don't advise being negative, but I do advise being honest with the Lord.
So good.
And I remember one night, just late at night, I'm just angry, you know, and I walk out on my street there and I remember just punching the fence. You know, I'm like, first of all, God, look how ugly the fence is. Right?
Valid.
Second of all, like, what happened to the promises, you know? And
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I felt the Lord in that season, he was bringing me to a crossroads. And so this is to answer that question. I think some of us need to get to a crossroads. And this is where the Lord brought me. I knew that there was a decision before me. It's either I'm 100% sold out, and I'm going to, with my entire life, I'm leaning into, like, the words that God's spoken over my life,
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
Or I just go home and forget about it
Wow.
completely.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here?
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, it was this place the Lord brought me to. Like, Joel, what do you really believe?
Yeah.
Like, let's get to the depth of your faith here. Is it just, it's almost as if, like, the Lord was saying to me, like, it's so awesome that you were able to burn for a year, for a season. But what do you believe? Like, in this scenario, when it feels like the world's shutting down, there's a pandemic, there's fear running rampant across the whole world. It feels like we're supposed to be isolated in our rooms, right? Like, what do you believe? I think it's easy to believe sometimes when we've got our community, we're together, there's a prophetic swirl going around, and
Yeah.
Lou Engel's in the front of the room rocking, you know?
Oh, he rocks.
Like,
yeah.
there's momentum, and in this environment, right, which is where I came from. But what do we believe when we're locked up in our room by ourselves, and there's a pandemic going across the globe, and fears running rampant, and heaviness and depression, and suicide rates are through the roof, you know, as
Yeah.
we've come through this crazy season. Like, what do you believe,
There it is.
right?
Yeah.
And this was kind of the decision table that the Lord, I felt him bring me to, even in the middle of this season of disappointment. And I was like, oh my gosh, Lord, like, I don't want to just be one of those people that just checks out when it gets a little hard, you know? And I was honestly so tired of my own, like, jadedness and skepticism.
Yeah.
At the end of that season, I was like, man, this is not who I don't want to be this kind of, what am I going to be, like, 70-year-old and just grumpy and, you know, like,
That's
Wow.
good.
like, mad at God. Like, this is not who I know God's called me to be something more than this, you know? And it was in that place of honesty and just being honest with the Lord. I felt the grace come over to me just to lay aside that unbelief. And I said, God, like, I repent for my unbelief, and I want to be a man of faith, you know? I want to be remembered for someone who took your word seriously and leaned in with my whole life, you know, to see those promises come to pass.
So good.
And so that's kind of a long answer to your question,
No,
but
I love that. I love what you're talking about, and I commend you, by the way, for getting to that place of honesty and then saying yes.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes we can get to that place and then walk away.
Yeah.
yeah,
And for you just to wrestle through and to say, you know what, I'm here and I'm disappointed and I'm going through all this and it doesn't make any sense and this pink fence is the ugliest fence I've ever
exactly,
seen.
yeah,
And I could punch it 12 times.
yeah,
I really commend you, because I think even to those who are listening, like, sometimes I think it's at the point where we feel like I want to give up is right at that point,
Yeah.
right on the other side is where
Yeah.
your breakthrough is going to
Yeah.
come.
Yeah.
And I think if you could just hold on a little bit longer and just
Yeah.
believe God. But I think that's what you said, right? You came to this point and it's like, I mean, how many conversations have we had in regards to, like, I don't want to quit when it gets hard. Like, when
Yeah.
did Jesus ever promise us the easy way? In fact,
Exactly.
did he not say difficult is the way, narrow is like the road?
Yeah.
Right? And I think we're going to go through storms and we're going to go through challenges and we are going to feel resistance. But just because we feel those things doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, this is the point where I tap out.
Exactly.
I think that's
Yeah.
where the point, like, for me, it's like I got to buckle in.
Yeah.
And I've really got to focus. And so
Yeah. No,
I
that's it.
love that.
Yeah.
I really do commend you for that, because I
Thank
think
you,
sometimes we
yeah.
overlook that part. And
Yeah.
it's, you really get to that place, right?
Yeah.
Of like, gosh, this sucks.
Yeah.
Like, I've been in seasons where I'm like, this is like the worst season I feel like I've
Yeah.
ever been in my whole entire life. but yet my yes to you is still my yes.
Yeah, that's it.
And
That's it.
so I love that. TT, what about
Yeah.
you? Any seasons maybe of, I called you TT and people are probably like, what?
That's okay.
Lauren.
That's what I'm used to now.
That's so funny.
Let's talk about maybe for you, how have you maybe overcome certain seasons?
I was thinking about that as you were talking, and
I'm glad you were thinking.
There we go.
I was listening too. No,
Yay.
personally, I know I've been through some of those seasons, but I think the most recent was one for my family, but primarily for my mom. And I know I shared with you guys, but my mom, who is a social worker, has been struggling for the past like 7+ years. And I've seen it just get harder and harder for her because, you know, working these cases with kids who have been through a lot, because she's in the foster care and adoption portion of social work, and just seeing her be so overwhelmed by these difficult cases, having to bring them home. She's salaried, so she's working at work, and then she comes home and she has to write reports and all these things, and just believing to the Lord for a new job or something, because my dad's retired. We needed better health care because she's diabetic, but she can't quit her job, because if she quits her job, we don't have the health care. So just like
Ongoing.
in this circle, and me and my dad, like, continuing to partner with her in prayer and just ask, like, Lord, like, strengthen her, like, because there's nothing we can do. So I know it was hard for us, even though we're not the ones actively going through it, being like, there's nothing that we can do except pray for her. But it seemed like we were waiting for so long and that nothing was happening. But she has said so many times, like, I can't do it. Like, I just can't do it. And she made it. Like, she made it all this way. He strengthened her each and every day to get through each and every day, until just a couple days ago, she got a call and was offered a promotion as a supervisor. So she longer has to handle the cases directly. Now she can supervise and train other people and not have such a heavy load on her. And you know, that comes with a raise, and so hopefully within the next 3 years she'll be able to retire with that rate that she's getting now. But that was tough, and as a daughter, like, seeing my mom so discouraged and seeing her crying out to the Lord, and not seeing her breakthrough, but knowing, like, Lord, I trust you, like, I know it's coming. I tried my best to encourage her, and I know the Lord even gave me a word, just a reminder of Nathaniel under that fig tree crying out to the Lord, like, do you see me? Like, and hearing no response, but then finding out later, like, no, he saw you the whole time, and he heard you, and he was working things out for your good. So that was just a reminder for me whenever, you know, go through anything tough, or it feels like, Lord, where are you? No, he hears you, he sees you, he's working things out.
I love that. I think too, maybe let's pick up on this, because you said your mom waited a long time.
Yeah.
We've heard this saying before, that it's worth the wait, right? Whatever it is, the promises, your breakthrough, the finances, your marriage, like, it is worth the wait. Maybe let's tag on this. You waited, right? Your mom waited. Torres, you probably wait. Actually, Torres and I have this inside joke. When we got Angel Stadium, and just a huge miracle, we had to overcome so many different obstacles, and there would be so many seasons, if you would look at our text thread, where we would just put the song Wait on the Lord, because so many times, like, all we could ever do in the seasons of, like, I don't know what else to do than wait. And I think we found ourselves in so many moments where it's like, the contract failed, okay, great, wait on the
Let's
Lord.
just wait.
Or we need an email to come through, what do we do? Like, we wait. So let's talk about this waiting season. It is a word that Gen Z does not like. It is a season that we probably don't like, but if we don't wait, then we're wasting seasons. And I heard a pastor say this, that a waiting season is not a wasted season if you wait the right way.
That's right.
And I think it's important for us to wait. So maybe let's talk on the subject of how do we wait well, I suppose, and what does that look like?
I mean, we have to wait on the Lord to get his heartbeat and to hear his voice. Like, we can't just start running around like headless chickens and expect.
I saw one, by the way.
Yeah, it's gnarly. It's like,
crazy.
We don't want to be like that.
I haven't seen one. That's crazy.
And we can't expect, like, we're gonna really accomplish important things in the kingdom that way. You know, I always think of. I mean, there's so many different Bible stories, but one of my favorite ones is actually in 2 Chronicles 20. It's the story of King Jehoshaphat. And, you know, the whole nation of Judah is is about to be under attack. You know, there's enemies coming from every direction, and Jehoshaphat has this freak out moment of panic, right? Of like look at all the armies coming. Our army is tiny, and how are we going to do this? And he decides to do something very smart. It says that he decided to inquire of the Lord.
Wow.
And it was in this place that it's a crazy story. Like he's the king, right? So he begins to seek God, right? And the whole nation follows. And it describes this national corporate gathering of prayer and worship, essentially, is what it is.
That's right.
Right? And in that setting, like this is where the breakthrough starts to happen. Like the Spirit of the Lord falls on the Levite stands up, like, this won't be your battle. You know, we know this story, like the Lord is going to fight on your behalf. Like, you're not going to have to do a lot, but take your positions tomorrow and watch what the Lord will do, right? And so, and obviously the rest of the story plays on, and they get onto the field, they start praising and worshiping, and this is where the enemies start fighting one another until they're completely destroyed, and then Judah goes and takes all their plunder. It takes like 3 days to gather all the plunder, right? And they go back and they're rejoicing. But I love that it started really with a moment for King Jehoshaphat. I think there was a temptation. There probably was a temptation there of like, okay, how am I going to fight this in my own strength? Like, what's the human strategy? What is, the next program or the next like strategy that I can muster up and try to take this victory, right? But I love that he kind of gets to the end of himself and he's like, let me just wait on the Lord and get his heart. Yeah. And then obviously we know the rest of the story. So that's one of the stories that has really marked our journey too. Like, we don't want to be, even where we are right now with our California Will Be Saved team, like we're really taking time to like get God's heart for this next season.
That's right.
Like, I don't want to be someone who just, kind of gets stuck on the hamster wheel of productivity, and just starts running because I know it's probably a good thing to do. Like, I want the fullness of what God wants to release, and in order to step into that, I think we have to have these seasons of like, God, what are you saying right now? And maybe it's going to offend us, and this is not what I had in mind, But I think just to your point, like these seasons, and it is so countercultural, right? Like we live in this instant gratification culture where like 7 days you can have abs like this, and like commercials here and there. And,
I've been trying to work out for 3 weeks in a row. No guns.
And like, microwaves and instant ramen and oatmeal and
I do like instant ramen.
You know what I mean?
So
like,
I totally get you. Yeah.
And it's like we really, I think, need to dive into like that verse, Psalm 46, like waiting on the Lord and being still and knowing that He is God. I think from that place, all of our fruit is going to flow, like real fruit, is going to flow so from. Good. So I'm preaching to myself right now. Like, that's like, I love to just go and go and go and go. But we really do. I think it's such an urgent hour. Like, we need God's word for the earth right now. Like, we don't need like some good plan that Joel can think of. Like, we really need heaven's plan and strategy for this generation, especially. So
that's so good. I love what you said, even about like being on like this hamster wheel of productivity, right? I feel like so much of even things I've heard or just like I've seen just pushed in culture, right? It's like go and grow, right? And it's like I can't go in full maturity and then have the expectation to grow there. You know what I mean? It's like the Lord is so strategic to have us wait, to have us. I love verses, where it's like talks about like, I can't remember I think it's in Psalm chapter 1, but it says He will be like a tree planted by rivers of water, right? And it's like the tree could be planted like meters away maybe from the river, right? I don't know how long exactly a meter is, but I'll assume like far enough to be far, but close enough to be close, you know what I'm saying? But their roots are gravitating towards the source, right? And I've seen it like so much even in my life. Like there's been times where God's been trying to sit me down and I won't let my roots grow, right? And go towards where I know God's calling me. I know. And I see in your story, I love how you shared, you came to a moment where you were honest, right? And I think that allowed you not to just be offended later, right? And I love that so much. And I think that's something that is so crucial in times when God is calling you to wait, right? Sometimes he's saving you from a future offense, right? He's saving you from so many things. I think that is so beautiful, that is where the Lord not just encountered you, right, but even sent you forward with even more momentum going into the call of God, you know. And the momentum the next day maybe didn't feel like, okay, Ross is calling me, I don't know who this guy Ross is, you know, but the momentum is, well, like I can be excited about where I'm at right now, because I know God is doing something I don't see. And I had a season in my life where the Lord was like, you know, I felt God had radically changed my life, right? I do this ministry with Nicole. It's called Jesus Clubs, right? We're going to high schools, right? We're like packing out this one gym. I'm like, let's go, right? I'm like fired up. And then I remember the Lord through this awesome way had shown me like, hey, you know, you're going to do this internship at the church that you go to, and you're not going to go to school for a year, right? You're like actually going to go to church every day for a year. And I remember in my own thoughts, I was like, well, what the heck? Like, that doesn't sound like, you know, all these great things you would have told me. Right. And it was so amazing to see, because of that year and because of the faithfulness of God to me in that year, not even my own faithfulness, because I got tired during that year. I had moments of doubt. I had moments of things like that. But God was so faithful to me. And I love it because even to you, like, it's so evident. God's so faithful to your right? In those moments that even coming out of it, if it's still not there, to be like, well, God, I'm just going to wait for you, right? And then all of a sudden, like, years go by and it's like, well, I'm just going to wait for you. And like hearing, you know, you're like, there was a pandemic, there was all this. But then all of a sudden, you know, the Lord sends someone, right, who you're running with now, and seeing God move across California and fulfill the very prophetic word he gave you, right? I think God is so faithful to do those things, and I love how he's so gentle and tender to us, right, when he tells us to wait and he tells us to just sit at his feet. I think that's so beautiful. That's but
I think waiting on the Lord requires dependence. It teaches us at least dependency on the Lord, right? Because when we wait on him, you have no choice but to release control, right? It's almost like this. True. It's almost this, like, full surrender of like I trust you, like, so here I am waiting.
Which is so hard. That's the hardest part.
It is for me. I think so too. Where it's like, I want to control everything. Exactly. I want to know when, where, what time, now. Like, and if my friends don't text me right away on the plan, I'm like, dude, what is wrong with you? Right? It's like I get so frustrated.
That's right.
But I think the more I recognize in this waiting season, it's not wasted because I'm growing. I'm learning. But the depth of what I'm doing is I'm really just fully dependent on him. Right? And I heard this, and the Lord really started to minister this to me. Nicole, the things that you start on your own will need to be sustained by you. Wow. Right? And I can't sustain any of this. Like, this will destroy me and crush me, and I will, like, plunder, and I will be like roadkill that you see on the 91 freeway. But when I wait on the Lord, and when I am dependent on him, and when I don't run ahead of him, then guess who sustains it? He does. And I think there's this freedom of, like, there's no pressure. I'm not stressing out. It's like, I've just got to learn to wait on him. And so I think as you're even talking, Nate and Joel, gosh, I'm really good with names, kind of. But I really think, do you really?
Yeah,
me and my sister get that a lot. Except they call her Nicole.
Right.
I really get Denny.
That's crazy.
Anyways, it would be cool though. She's a lot cooler than I, but that's besides the point. But nonetheless, dependency on him, I think that's what waiting really does. Is it allows us to release the control of, this is what I want and what I want to do it when and when or where.
That's huge. Like, even, you know, in the beginning of our journey, we felt God confirming it so clearly. Like, you know, even through that dream, that was a big part of it, that now is the time. And for me, I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, if now is the time, then this is what God's saying, then we got to go, you know? And I've noticed even throughout our journey, different points of, like, being stressed and feeling anxious. I always come back to, like, that beginning of, like, God, this is what you said, you know, like, exactly what you're saying. Like, this is not something that I can, do in my own strength and, in my own human effort that we can pull off, like the promises that we're believing for, this is what you have spoken, and kind of just putting it back, like, like, God, this is your dream. Yeah. This is your revival. Yeah. This is not just my ministry and my thing or our team's thing or whoever. Like, this is your dream, right? And this is what I said yes to, right? And kind of like zooming out again and being like, okay, God, like, ground me and and center me again. Like, I'm playing one of the many roles in your dream,
So good.
So that's what's going to sustain.
And I think too, you've got to be committed to the process, right? Like, there is, like, I think too, I get this God dream, right? Whatever it is, California will be saved, right? Angel Stadium. And I think when you get it, you're like, okay, tomorrow. Like, how many times have we in our own humanness have planned, well, God, this date will be fantastic tomorrow, right? And then we get to that date and we're like, oh gosh, we were so, like, we had this thing called the garage of disobedience.
Oh yeah.
Because we decided, you know what, we're gonna take my garage, my backyard, and we're just gonna make it this office, and it's gonna be fantastic, it's gonna be awesome. Yeah. And now I look back and I'm like, that was one of the dumbest things we could have done. But we went so far ahead of God. By the way, our hearts, I think, were right. Right. But I think sometimes when you're just excited and you're just passionate and you're like, God, you gave me this, give it to me now. I think there comes this, like, perspective that I've learned is I'm gonna be committed to the process. I'm gonna be committed to the journey of this. And as I wait and as I pray and as I believe and as I don't get ahead of God, like, we're gonna see it. It's just a process of am I following him? Am I waiting?
Exactly.
And so, anyways, I kind of want to shift the conversation. I know I've got just a couple more moments here. But Ross, you do something.
Joel,
oh my gosh. I'm just going to make up a name.
That's number
for
2.
y'all.
Can we get a Ross counter?
Yeah.
I'm just going to call him Roll.
Roll.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to help me out here. Or Joss.
That's so funny.
Oh my gosh. Joel, you do something that I desire to do. And it's singing.
Oh gosh.
Like,
let's go.
I just desperately want to be a good singer.
Desperately.
Someone once told me I'm not like tone deaf, so like I'm progressively getting there. I dropped a rap the other day. I'll show it to you after this.
Come on.
It's called
crazy.
Homie G. I wrote it my freshman year in high school. I'll show it to you. I'll text it to you. It's fantastic. Talk to me though. Worship. As we get ready to wrap up, what is worship to you? You're a worship leader. You lead a lot of people into worship. You've led a lot of events to worship. But what does worship really mean to you?
Mm-hmm. Oh man, worship is my favorite, and it's my favorite thing to talk about too. I think, first of all, worship is, it's just what I will be doing for eternity, and I love that in this temporary life that I still get to tap into my eternal destiny. Wow. And that to me just blows me away. I'm like, God, like, you'd allow me to tap into that now on the earth.
Wow. I've never thought that way.
And also invite others into that.
Yeah.
Like, that blows me away, and it's just the most fun, I think true worship allows us to see Jesus rightly. I love that in heaven right now there's a song around the throne, and Revelation talks about this. Different ones talk about this. The prophet Isaiah has this encounter as well. Let's talk about Isaiah for a second. He gets caught up into a vision of heaven, right? Isaiah chapter 6, and he's on the earth, right? He's living on the earth, but he gets caught up. He describes what he sees. He says there's a song going on around the throne. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory, right? And it says like this is the year King Uzziah died, which some scholars believe that would have meant there was a lot of political tension in the nation, right? Right in that same moment, Isaiah gets caught up. He sees what's going on around the throne, and he says, "Woe am I have unclean lips," right? We know this story. like God, you've got to cleanse me. You've got to purify me. Like what's going on right now is so holy. Like I don't even deserve to see what's happening here, right? Like this is his first, it's this posture of humility, right? And of coming to this place of God, like this is crazy what I'm saying, but you've got to clean me up. And he says the people that I come from they also need to be cleansed, right? And of course, God he sees that posture of humility, and he breathes on it, right? He's like, the angel comes, he cleanses his lips, right? And then we know the rest of the story. Like I know this story in a lot of ways to be a missional chapter of Isaiah says, "Here am I, Lord, send me." You know, but before anything, there was this posture of humility and coming before the throne, and I think that's one of my points. I think with worship that we must come. I think I just did a whole teaching on this. I went through a lot of different stories throughout the Bible where people came with the opposite approach to worship, right? We even like the story of Cain and Abel, the story of Ananias and Sapphira in Acts 5. I went through all these different worship service scenarios where they came with like the opposite approach of it's really more about me and what I can get out of this, and how can I kind of just slip one by the Lord, right, and still carry on with my life and still get his blessing, but not I've left my heart behind, right? Like the story of Cain and Abel, like Cain comes and he brings them just like the pitiful vegetables, right? And Abel brings the fattest of the calves, right? And it's like this number one offering, and so I think there's this biblical precedent with worship that like before anything, it's just about the Lord. It's about ministering to him. And when we get to that place of like, man, even if I don't get anything out of this and I just get to see you, like that to me is the purity of worship, you know? Like I want to look at you. I know right now there's a song going on in heaven, and it's holy, holy, holy is the Lord. Like I always like to picture what is it that the angels, what's on the mind of the angels, right? Describes this 10,000 by 10,000. They're in heaven right now. Like, I think the last thing on their mind is their own worry about their own life. Right. Like you can't tell me that they're up there right now and they're looking at the Son of God and they're worried about like their own problems. Yeah. Right. And I've found it like in my own life, like when I've come through different obstacles and hardships and moments of anxiety and sadness and heaviness, it's because I'm so introspective and I'm so zoomed in and looking at me and me and me and me and me and everything about me. Yeah. You know, and I have to like God has had to remind me, like, Joel, you got to break out of that introspective bubble you're in, and you've got to zoom out and you've got to see me and you've got to see the story that I'm writing, right? Yeah. And so I think that's my charge with worship is like, man, we have to. I love, you know, there's a lot of different songs and a lot of different themes that Christian songwriters putting out, and I love them, and we need all these different, you know, styles, but we need to get back to the simplicity of worship again. Yeah,
that's right. Of
like even with everything we're doing with California Will Be Saved, I see it this way, like ultimately what we're doing with all of the evangelism and all of the, you know, believing for salvation and signs and wonders, ultimately what we're doing is we're inviting a whole generation to be eternal worshipers of the Lamb on the throne.
That's right. Yeah.
Like this is our one thing, you know, like before anything else, like this is like, guys, this is all we're going to be doing. Yeah. We're just going to look at him and we're just going to sing about him and we're just going to praise him.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Wow. And right now in our generation, like we have to get to this place, I think. Like this is our one thing. You know, I think in the middle of all the distraction and all of the bombardments and the different narratives and all of the craziness that's going on in our generation, like this is it. You know, and I think when we actually get to that authentic place of surrender and of pure worship, like we're not going to need to worry about like God does it.
Yeah.
You know, like just like we're talking about with waiting on the Lord, like we wait, and by the way, we don't wait forever. Like there's an action moment, right? And you're going to be so ready and
That's
so
right.
prepared, and God's going to ekbalo you. He's going to send you out into your destiny, right?
Yeah.
Because you were patient and you were submitted to the process, right? And so this is that. I think that's my charge for this generation. Like, man, let's just not look at ourselves for just a minute, you know, and just look at him and just say, God, I want to see you. Maybe you've never even seen him. I always love to invite young people, like, will you ask the Holy Spirit to reveal Jesus on the throne? Like, he's on the throne right now.
Yeah.
It might not feel like he is in your life, everything that you've come through, but right now, he's literally there right now. Like, he's seated there in this very moment, right?
It's cute. I think too,
So
like,
good.
I love what you're saying, because I think it's important for us to make sure that, you know, like, especially our generation, is to really get our eyes off of ourselves and focus on the Lord. And I can't think of a better posture thing than worship. Right? I think worship really, if you really worship, it is not you, and you're literally just focusing on the Lord and saying,
Yeah.
this is unto you, and I'm going to praise you because you're good, whether I feel like you're good or not.
Yeah.
I'll worship you whether I feel like it or not, and that is just the heart and the posture of worship. So
And
I love that.
You'll be amazed at what happens in your own heart when you do get to that place,
It's good.
right?
Right.
Like God is so much better than we think.
Oh, way better.
When we get to
Better
that,
than we think right now.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think you'll be shocked when you get to that. You guys know you've had these moments, right, of surrender with the Lord, and you get to that, and you know, and down deep, like if you're there or not, you know.
Yeah.
At least I can speak for myself.
Right.
Like,
No, I agree. I think too. I feel like when I know when I'm worshiping, and I know, oh, he's here,
yeah,
and it changes, like, everything for me.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I get it.
and you know that you've surrendered everything
Yep.
too.
It's all on the altar.
And then every time, even throughout the whole Bible, every time that there was an acceptable
Offering.
sacrifice or an offering, like God met it with fire, you
Wow.
know? And so like that's the promise for all of us. Like when we get to that place of authentic worship and complete surrender, like watch out, because you're like a landing pad for God's fire on your life.
Wow.
You know?
So
That's
good.
I love that. That's
So
so
it's not
good.
just like out of religiosity and like,
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
it can't be either.
yeah. Like, no, I'm getting to that place because God's so good. I know he's going to blow my mind when I get there, you know?
That's so good.
But he's also worthy. It's both. It's like together, right? It's like whether I feel it or not, he's worthy. So I'm bringing you my worship, God. Like I know that this is true.
Wow.
It's in spirit and in truth, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just the truth. You're worthy, and so I'm bringing you my worship. And then at the same time, bam, he comes with his fire, and it's like, whoa.
Ooh, that's so good.
So
It's good.
That's really
Well, I'm
good.
looking at the clock. You beat Ross, by the way.
You beat
Let's
Ross.
go.
Yeah, you did.
But we do have to close it up.
Yeah.
Our note said, "Let's start wrapping up, y'all." So we are gonna wrap it up. Joel, thank you so much for being on the pod. TT, we love you. You're a friend.
Love you guys.
We're also gonna barbecue later today.
Come on, get the burger.
No,
going.
we're not. No, we're not. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast.
The fattened
love
calf
you.
right here. Come on.
Hey, come on.
Oh, but not the bad vegetables. Just the calf.
Just the
'Cause
meat.
we're not
Hey.
veggie.
Hey.
Never mind. I hope you loved it. Can't wait to see you. Peace.
Can't wait to see you guys.
Bye.